Yo, like, you watching these Kavanaugh hearings or nah? Dyze in the house.
Representing Staten Island.
J Pork's here. Your lone Staten Island member of the resistance. Coming to you here on East Coast Radio every Friday, bringing you an action-packed edition of Dyze in your house. And what we do here on Least Coast Radio for the least heard voices is we talk about things that are important to our democracy, and what's coming up in November are very important elections, local elections that we, as people, as Americans who love America, need to participate in if we want to create a check on the violent tyrant who currently occupies the Oval Office. And one way you could help is by going to patreon.com/JPorks and become a Least Coast Radio head. There are different tiers, there are different features you can get, all sorts of stuff happening. It's Least Coast Radio for the least heard voices. And now, here is another action-packed edition of Dyze in your house.
Representing Staten Island.
Hey, yo. Who's in the house? Dyze in your house. What is the word, peeps? What goes on? It is Friday. It is Least Coast Radio, and that means we are back with another action-packed edition of Dyze in your house. This is the pre-show, the post-show, the prelude to the long-form J Parks podcast, which comes to you every Monday evening between the hours of 6 and 8, depending on what we're doing that day, depending on how things go. But what we do on the J Parks podcast is we represent the resistance in every way we can. And what we do is we represent democracy. Because more importantly, over all of our personal self-interests that we may, all of our selfish needs, that all the selfish reasons we may pay attention to politics, one of the main goals of politics is to protect this country, protect this nation, and protect our democracy. And it doesn't mean protecting it from foreign adversaries all the time, because right now you have Republican leadership which is complicit in the destruction of democracy. And we're going to talk about that in a second, the hypocrisy that's happening over the Brett Kavanaugh hearings for Supreme Court. We're going to talk about that in 1 second. But first, I just want to mention a little bit about what we're going to be doing on Monday. Because as you know, Dyze in your house, Least Coast Radio, this serves as a pre-show, a post-show, a prelude. This is where we take one section of what we would spend time on the J Parks podcast, and we move it out of there because we don't want to give you too much stuff. Because, listen, even I had to watch that Active Measures documentary twice. Sometimes too much information at once is hard to digest. So I'm on a Nexium regimen. I know how the digestive system works, and I know that it's tough. So that's why on Dyze in your house, I usually try to tackle one topic for about 20 minutes, give or take. We got some background music, no edits, no cuts. If I cough, I'm sorry. That's just how it is. But I try to give you a taste of what we're going to get on Monday as well. So what I want to do is I want to tell you a couple of things happened this week. A couple of things are in the news this week that we will discuss. First of all, we're going to dive on the J Parks podcast. We got to talk about who Bill Burke is and why he's God all of a sudden. We need to discuss that. But importantly, two insights into the White House came out this week, or are coming out this week. Bob Woodward has a book. Bob Woodward of All the President's Men. Bob Woodward of Woodward and Bernstein of the Washington Post. Bob Woodward of, dozens of books, presidents of both parties, esteemed journalist, probably the journalist. So Bob Woodward has a book, and he's got all sorts of quotes from people inside the White House, and he's got recordings. So that's a book that comes out, I believe, this week, and everyone should be on the lookout for it, and everybody should be buying it. Another thing that happened this week was we got we had an anonymous op-ed posted in the New York Times from a senior White House official, basically saying how they're the resistance inside the White House. You know, they thwart Trump's policy positions. Now, I'm just going to tell you that, I mean, in short right here, I'm just going to explain to you that could possibly be a shiny object. If you have two accounts of what's going on inside the White House, and they're both similar, wouldn't you want to wait to read Bob Woodward's interpretation of the situation, where he has quotes and backup, and he's a journalist? Or we don't know who the senior White House official is. Listen, here's my thing. Who works for the New York Times? Maggie Haberman. I know Maggie Haberman isn't on the op-ed board or the editorial board. I understand that's not how that works. But who's the number one leaker to Maggie Haberman at the New York Times? It's Trump. That's why we had the Access Haberman episode of either the J Porks podcast or Dyze in Your House. I don't quite remember which one it was at the moment. But either way, there is a good chance. What I'm trying to tell you is that there is a very good chance that somebody in the White House, and not somebody working for the White House, there's a very good chance this is a Trump or a Roger Stone operation, because the op-ed gives you all sorts of stuff that Trump and his base can use. They can cry deep state. Oh my God, somebody's worse. See, this is why we can't get anything done. People are working against us on the inside. The sleeper cells have awoken. I'm not saying that there aren't people in the White House trying to be the guardrails of society. But until somebody resigns or until somebody puts their name on it, I'm not paying as much attention to that as I would say the Bob Woodward book titled Fear, which should be out this week, I believe, because a lot of news organizations got it last week, to my knowledge. So that kept interrupting the Kavanaugh hearings. People talking about this anonymous bombshell op-ed. We don't know who wrote it yet. And I'm not going to sit here and theorize who might have written it. Because when we do that, we're ignoring important things going on. The Supreme Court nominate. See, no cuts here. No cuts here on the J-Pork on Dyze in Your House. We do not do any cuts, because then we'd have to re-sync the background music. We have hearings to name the next justice of the Supreme Court that Trump has named, even though he's an unindicted co-conspirator in at least a campaign finance violation. We also have tons of other evidence that he colluded and that there was there was collusion and there was a plan to conspire with a foreign government to affect the outcome of a U.S. election. There is an investigation going on into Trump right now, into Trump's orbit, into his family, into everybody that surrounded the campaign and that surrounds him now, and that has surrounded every decision he's made. Okay? In no way should Trump be able to name a judge to the Supreme Court when this judge is going to be the tie-breaking vote, most likely, in anything that gets to the Supreme Court having to do with this investigation. Now, what we've seen over the course of this week, 3 days of hearings, it is Friday. I'm recording this before anything goes on today. As of press time, it is Friday morning, 6 a.m. I'm hopped up on coffee. What people need to understand is that there are some serious questions here. Where are the documents? Why are they being hidden? Why is Republican leadership not okay with waiting a few days? What's a few days to review some documents? Why are 42,000 documents getting dumped on the committee the night before the hearings start? Why is every time there's a question about Roe v. Wade or separation of powers, why does Brett Kavanaugh give an answer like, oh, well, I can't answer hypotheticals? But when Republicans ask him a question, he says, oh, yeah, this is how I would rule. That's exactly what's been going on. And apologies to anybody that hasn't been watching this. But if you haven't been watching the whole thing, I don't want to hear anybody talk about, oh, well, the Dems. Look what they're doing. Look at this show. The obstructionists. What a sad group of... I saw one of my friends on Facebook, who I respect his political opinion dearly, but he's also an independent. Which, by the way, there are no independents. There are just people that don't want to say that they're Democrat or Republican. By the way, America doesn't have independents. If you thought they did, then again, I got a bridge to sell you, and it's half price until 5. So just let me know. Call me on my phone. Anyway, so people, I read comments, somebody talking about like fantasy football, and then like it was brought up. So, what do you think of Kavanaugh? And this friend who I respect said, "You have a sad group of Dems over there, man." I mean, obviously these people haven't seen the questioning from Kamala Harris, from Cory Booker, from Sheldon Whitehouse, from Amy Klobuchar, from Dick Durbin, even Dianne Feinstein. I mean, listen, it's not anybody's fault that cable news starts the hearings and the first senators you get are Senator Feinstein, who's like 90 years old, or Leahy. But if you, by the time, 4, 5, 6 o'clock goes on, cable news, like MSNBC, they cut in to they go to Deadline, they go to Meet the Press. They don't do the live coverage of the hearings anymore, so you have to find C-SPAN 2, because C-SPAN 1 is House of Representatives business. And yes, I know it's very sad that I know that, but I was looking for the SCOTUS hearings. Kamala Harris was pressing Brett Kavanaugh on a question. Did he have any conversations about the Mueller investigation with people at a law firm that Kasowitz works for? Kasowitz is one of Trump's lawyers. And the way she said, be very careful how you answer this question. We have Senate Democrats releasing documents that Republicans are saying are confidential. By the way, they're not. Let me clear up something here from what I've interpreted from the rules and from what I've read. Committee confidential does not mean like national security confidential. You know what I'm saying? These documents are made committee confidential by the Republican leadership. For what reason, we don't know. But Cory Booker doesn't care. Senator from Hawaii doesn't care. Klobuchar doesn't care. They're releasing documents. They don't care. And I'm with it. And Kamala Harris, when asking Brett Kavanaugh about did he ever have a conversation with anyone at that law firm, he was trying to ask, like, who are you talking about? Who do you have in mind? She's just like, anybody. It's a direct question. Did you? Be very careful how you answer the question, sir. That's what she said. Kamala Harris, and my buddy Justin reminded me on Twitter. Friendly reminder, Kamala's a cop. Or Kamala. Rachel Maddow said Kamala, so we're going to go with Kamala. But I'm not, either way. Senator Harris from California. He says she's a cop, I just want to remind you. And I'm like, she's hopped on every bill to end cannabis prohibition, to my knowledge. Also, I don't hate cops. I hate two groups of cops. Cops that shoot unarmed black kids in the inner cities. And I hate cops that arrested me before the Cake concert for possessing a small amount of marijuana. And may or may not have been inhaling and exhaling it outside. My feelings on that situation before the Cake concert was, I didn't want to be a fire hazard by smoking indoors. Obviously, that was not the case. Obviously, the cops didn't see it that way. But I don't hate cops. So if Kamala Harris, I'm with it. Cory Booker, I'm with it. Sheldon Whitehouse was asking poignant questions. He was asking questions, and like when Brett Kavanaugh would try to filibuster, and like because that's what each senator gets like a half hour in the first round and 20 minutes in the second round. So before when a question would get asked, Kavanaugh would have brought, well, let me explain to you my thinking behind that. Well, first you take this case from the... And no. Whitehouse wasn't having it. Yes or no? Okay, cool. Every damn time. And listen, I heard somebody say... I don't even know. I forget who it was. This person might have been on Chris Hayes. This person might have been on Rachel Maddow Thursday night. I can't exactly say... Or maybe it was even John Heilman, but what the Democrats need to do when they get, if a blue wave is something that happens, they get control of the House. I don't care what the pecking order is. Sheldon Whitehouse needs to be the chairman of this board. Because Sheldon Whitehouse seems like the person who has the most amount of facts, and he could squeeze them in the most little amount of words. He had charts behind him, showing these are the big Republican groups that back these causes. They are the same groups that back all of the Brett Kavanaugh ads for, the Supreme Court. Why? Why is the Federalist Society so interested in getting Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court? Why is Brett Kavanaugh afraid to answer the question whether he had a conversation about the Mueller investigation with anybody at that Kasowitz law firm? Why? Short answer, because he was consulted about the Mueller investigation before he was put on that list by the Federalist Society. Because, and this is just Jay Bork speculating, wacky liberal from Staten Island, wacky guy. My speculation is that he was only added, because he's a late addition to the list. He wasn't on the list during election season. He wasn't added to the list until late 2017, after Mueller was appointed. So the Federalist Society reached out and they looked for a judge that thought that investigations into the presidency, into the occupant of the Oval Office, no matter how much of a wannabe despot, orange cunt monkey criminal he is, somebody thought that that person shouldn't be burdened with an investigation. And the Federalist Society decided that that was the person they were going to have Trump pick. Even Mitch McConnell, the blocker of Merrick Garland, the neck of the chicken, even Mitch McConnell told Trump, this is going to be the hardest guy to get confirmed with all the documents we need to get produced. And again, we don't have all the documents. The Democrats aren't even... first of all, the Democrats should just cry Merrick Garland all day. But they're not. They have real beefs. We have emails that show that Brett Kavanaugh doesn't really think Roe v. Wade is settled law, even though he's over there under oath saying that it's precedent upon precedent. He did not say it's correct law, because that's a hypothetical. No, that's a way to evade the question. And that's what you're doing. And we get it. And you are way more, they say judges aren't supposed to be politicians. Well, meet Brett Kavanaugh, political judge. Sheldon Whitehouse was also talking about the Roberts 5. We're creating another Roberts 5 here. And why can't there be an even number of people on the Supreme Court? How about they work it out? Wouldn't that be more American? And pay attention to Kavanaugh's answers. Because you might say, Jay, he believes in the check and balances. And because he says Nixon v. Watergate was versus Nixon, he thinks that was the best, the brightest time of the Supreme Court. He thinks that was the best decision they ever made. He didn't say that he thinks that because he thinks it was the correct decision. He thinks it was the correct decision. He thinks it was the greatest triumph of the Supreme Court because they all agreed unanimously. Which, by the way, they didn't. Rehnquist recused himself. If I'm remembering correctly. Because he was appointed by Nixon. When asked if he would recuse from any Mueller probe rulings. I can't answer hypotheticals. No, you're towing the Federalist Society line. Oh, Jay, what's wrong with the Federalist Society? If the Lindsey Graham, oh man, what a fucking hypocrite this guy is. Lindsey Graham's like, oh, if the Democrats chose somebody the president of the ACLU, Republicans wouldn't be up here complaining. Are you joking right now? If the Democrats put somebody Latino up there, you guys would not hold the hearing and say, well, we can't confirm a Supreme Court nominee, with 3 years left in a presidential term. It's insane. And the judicial president that Judge Kavanaugh keeps citing when he won't say that Roe v. Wade is correct law, he says he studied every other Supreme Court nominee currently serving. He studied their testimony, and they all claim that, they all said that they weren't going to answer hypotheticals and say what their decision might be on a certain decision. Actually, if you go back, that's not what happened. Ruth Bader Ginsburg said that Roe v. Wade is one of the most important and one of the most monumental and greatest decisions of our time, and that a woman's right to choose. If Brett Kavanaugh is going to lie, because that's what he's doing, he's up there lying. But lying to the Senate is not something Brett Kavanaugh is, unfamiliar with. He's lied to the Senate before during other confirmation hearings. And the Dems are onto something. And anybody that thinks that this is a sad group of Dems just because the old folks lead it off. You guys should stay up late at night. You guys should turn on C-SPAN too. You guys should check out Sheldon Whitehouse, Amy Klobuchar. Check out Kamala Harris, who's the new star of the Democratic Party. Check out Cory Booker. And check out East Coast Radio. This has been Dyze in Your House. Jay Porks here, and I know I've been a little busy on this East Coast Radio stuff, talking about resist, remove, and recreational, but I gotta tell you about one more thing. You should be a East Coast Radiohead. That's right. And you can become a East Coast Radiohead just by going to patreon.com/JPorks and check out the offers we have there. There's a low tier, a middle tier, and a high tier. All of those get you bonus content, exclusive personalized artwork, and even a chance to interact with me on a personal level over the phone. We could talk about what's going on in this podcast. We could talk about how we are going to flip these seats blue in November. And we are going to vote like this is our final election, because it might be. Patreon.com/JPorks. Become a Least Coast Radiohead and join the resistance.